Hello, everyone, and welcome to this exciting new episode of the Galactic Family Podcast. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Michael Kwaaitaal. I'm going to ruin his last name. I'll let him say it. So, Michael K. His journey is anything but ordinary, from Rubik's Cube champion at 14 to CFO of Cognos/IBM. He helped scale a software giant across 35 countries and build billions in growth. Yet he walked away from the corporate life to seek deeper meaning and awaken to his intuitive gifts as a psychic medium and a soul strategist. Today, Michael bridges business, spirituality, and innovation, founding projects like Vote Holder for decentralized democracy, and advertising startups in education, wellness, and transformation. His mission is to align awareness, technology, and human potential for a more harmonious future. So let's bring Michael up to the stage here. Hey, how are you doing, Michael?
Hi, Jay. I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's wonderful to have you here.
It's my pleasure to be on your show. So thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Can you share a bit about your upbringing near Amsterdam and how it shaped your worldview?
Yeah, of course. Just traditional good upbringing. We have a good family close to Amsterdam. There's things that I guess now I'm sort of looking back on that stand out somewhat, just in terms of cultural aspect. And when you start thinking about the psyche of a location, in this case a country, we all carry some of that energy with us, and now sort of understanding that more. But yeah, it's relatively modest upbringing, and just went through the typical situations at school, and you sort of grow up, and then at some point we spent a lot of time with our grandparents. They had a house in Spain, and my mom was a flight attendant, so we got to travel a lot at an early age. And my grandfather was a principal of a school and a math teacher, but he was also a competitive chess player. So we sort of, as kids, got introduced to board games mainly, and then chess as I got a little bit older. And I think, now I'm sort of more aware of connecting the dots backwards. And I think some of what I'm doing today directly relates back to those early childhood memories of my grandfather saying, hey, this is a game of chess. Don't worry about your next move. In this game, you got to think 5 steps ahead. And so naturally, I guess I got into sort of strategic thinking, and then, tie that to some of the other sort of spiritual markers that we are given at birth, which are attached to our, the essence of our soul, essentially. A lot of that now makes complete sense. So in that sense, lots happened since then. So since that childhood.
Yeah, definitely. You won the Rubik's Cube championship at age 14. What did that teach you about problem solving?
Yeah, good question. I think I had a little bit of a head start. The Rubik's Cube, because I was in an airline family, I was given a cube ahead of my peers, but I actually learned it from someone else to solve the basic steps, because it's just so the way that we did it back in the days, which was sort of the early 80s, when the cube just came out, so it was a brand new toy. We just had a series of steps by which you could, progressively form the cube. It was like stage gates. If I look at what kids are doing now, it blows me away. My best time, I think, ever was 46 seconds. And it was sort of luck was a part of that. But now I see kids doing it in 3 seconds or 4 seconds. So they actually absorb the state of the cube in which it's given to them in a mess. And they pre-cognitive know exactly which moves are the minimal moves to solve it. And they can do it in a fraction of the time that I did it. And that blows me away that they have that capacity. What it taught me was that the more you practice, the quicker you get, of course. And and then other people wanted me to solve their puzzles. That's another clue.
Oh boy. So what led you into finance and ultimately Cognos and the world leader in business and intelligence?
Yeah, well, actually, it was the opposite of what led me there. I didn't want to do finance. I was terrible at school. Didn't want to pay attention. Always sort of thought Google would come to the rescue. So I was never interested in history as a child. Actually, my nickname, which is sort of related to the name of your channel, but I got attributed the nickname of ET, and I don't know if it was my physical looks or some other suggestion that was that my peers gave, my friends gave me at school, but they always called me ET, which is interesting now. Yeah, so the data cubes essentially, where that came from. So I actually didn't like the idea of finance. I just thought everybody's going to sales and marketing, so I need to do something else. And I'm actually good with puzzles and cubes and numbers. I was pretty good with spreadsheets early on.
Yeah.
And so I actually thought of using that avenue to get into a leadership position. And I think the leadership part, again, I now know there's, so I'm an Aries, born on the 30th of March, which in numerology goes to 33. And I've only, so that's sort of late breaking awareness, like in the last couple of years, really. But it sort of explains why I got into finance and why, I started with Cognos. It's called Cognos, which is essentially a Latin word for Gnos, for inner knowing, for intuition. And one of our early marketing campaigns was for a product called Power Play, which was a multi-dimensional data cube, essentially an OLAP tool, like a cube, but with 7 dimensions.
Okay.
That was marketed as these are real tools, not toys. And what it allowed you to do is essentially look at a database from a multiple perspectives visually and multiple dimensions. So database had rows and columns. So if you think of a very simple spreadsheet, you've got 2 dimensionals, rows and columns, but then you could add layers to that. And what our products allowed us to do is to expand the complexity of the cube in multiple dimensions. But back in the days, there were only 7 layers because computers were slow. That was held back or constrained by computer performance.
Yeah.
And those constraints no longer exist. So essentially, what happened was I started there in 25. The company had made this massive pivot from old technology, which were application development software tools, towards these analytic tools that were much more like PC driven. So I was the first person in the building as the finance assistant to work with what was called a portable computer. Wouldn't call it a notebook because the thing was heavy and it was still slow. But I got to play with that software pretty much ahead of everyone else. And I guess then, started getting handy with how to look at data. And then I started, I was promoted to finance director when I was 28. And then I had to fire the general manager in the Dutch office. So I immediately became a quasi CEO in my late 20s, entrusted with a lot of responsibility for a NASDAQ listed software tech firm. And then we started growing so fast. So we sort of doubled in size every 3 years, adding offices all around Europe. So initially out of Amsterdam, where we had a shared accounting center. And so I guess I learned early to delegate and also so Dutch culture, we're sort of very equal there and very tolerant. So I never really had a bad boss in those early years. They were all great people. It was more like a family. And I guess my style also adapted to that quickly. So I just started hiring friends and different people had different roles. And I just took the responsibility, but I was never, because I didn't know what we were needing to do. We were all learning at the same time. And so, I really had a great opportunity, which I guess I didn't even realize at the time. We were just working hard and we were doing all-nighters and, always traveling, always on, and then we got into Blackberries, and the demands of the job were severe, but we're also successful. So when we started acquiring companies, we acquired a planning software company. So if you can imagine analytics that is sort of organized structures of reporting software of big databases, and then with a planning engine on the front end to look towards the future, being able to do scenario planning. Essentially what we now refer to in the spiritual world as manifestation. In business, it was called corporate performance management. So it was about setting a future outcome and then understanding through analytics that path, and then essentially reverse engineering from the future outcome. So at Cognos, we decided we want to be the undisputed world leader in this particular segment of the tech industry. And then in 2002, we achieved that. And so from that moment on, that's when I got the opportunity to relocate to Australia. It was sort of an expat arrangement. It was supposed to be for 3 years. It's so nice in Australia. I just never contemplated going back when I first arrived. But essentially, the work actually started becoming, whilst it was still wildly exciting, it also became somewhat boring and monotone. And I started sort of seeing, hey, in Australia, I was doing the same thing as I did in the Netherlands, just in a completely different market. That was very exciting, don't get me wrong. Like, I got sent to all the Asian countries, experienced their cultures, like whether it was Tokyo or Hong Kong or, just all around. And we were still rapidly growing and acquiring other companies. So the work sort of remained the same, but by that stage, I was fortunate to have so much autonomy that I had a lot of people that I could hire to do the actual work and sort of free myself up to just become like almost an advocate or an ambassador for our products towards customers. So I got dragged into sales situations and so on. And my own work just became easier. So I became more confident. We sort of had control through spreadsheets. So that's sort of, I'll pause there for a bit.
No, that's fine. I would have let you keep going. In 2008, you gave up corporate life to prioritize family. What was the tipping point?
Yeah, good question. There was very specific, a couple of tipping points sort of collided or came together. So first of all, I had been with that company for 15 years. It was my first sort of job, really, and I had this tremendous run, which was it was a combination of being at the right place at the right time, but also premonition. I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted an international career, and I wanted something in a growing industry that would sort of always inspire me and fulfill me. And I've had that experience for 15 years, and it was so good in many ways. I made so many great connections all over the world. I got to learn a lot about cultures, and the essence, and it's particularly interesting from now, is that we're still very divided by so many different attributes. But as people, we're more the same than we're different, and it doesn't really matter what clothes we wear, what language we speak, what food we eat. People all want to stay healthy. They want to get ahead in life. They don't want to have any trouble necessarily. Nobody likes war, No. So once you sort of realize that, and I guess that's when, to go back to your question, the trigger happened for me is that I started sensing a lack of fulfillment at work. I had a young family, so I got married when I arrived in Australia with an Aussie girl, and we all went very quickly. So we had 2 beautiful young daughters. And we still lived in Sydney, and I was still away half the month, traveling long distance flights to do acquisitions, to manage the business, to meet with clients, but also to put out fires from when things went wrong. So it was always on, it was always one of those high pressure, and I loved it until then. But then, of course, when you have young children, your priorities change, and all of a sudden it's not about you anymore. And I started really contemplating, why keep pursuing a career if there's the opportunity of a life? And I'd done well financially, obviously, until then. We had stock options, and I'd been there for a long time. So I had a safety buffer. And then we decided, so there was one other remarkable point, which I'll mention, is there was a leadership conference on, and I was the only one that wasn't invited. And so I started questioning, is there a message in here that I'm not supposed to be at this leadership conference where all the talent gets
right.
Get taught all these new tricks? I thought I'd done all right so far. I was told I was CFO, that I was the conscious of the business in Asia Pacific, and there were 5 or 6 other people going and not me. And then the message back from head office was, well, it's only for vice presidents, and you're not a vice president. And I was always the youngest everywhere. So I thought it was me. I started thinking, what did I do wrong?
Oh, boy.
And so my obvious next question is, so what do I have to do I have to work even harder? Do I have to make you more money? We were insanely profitable.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that. And then the answer was, well, no, Asia Pacific is too small. And that's when I immediately had this, I sort of said, no, that's disrespectful. My work here is way harder than what I was doing in Europe.
Yeah.
They sent me to China, to Beijing, to buy our Chinese distributor in Chinese through a translator in a country that has no legal system that anyone's aware of, where back in the days, there were so many casualties of businesses going bankrupt. And so I got to do really hard work, but in North America, everything's relatively simple. The numbers are bigger.
Yeah.
But there was one legal entity in North America, and I'd been dealing with 35 in different countries with different payroll systems, different tax regimes. And I had to do all these tax audits, difficult work that you can't possibly know, right? There's no way.
Yeah.
The Rubik's Cube was too big for me, but I still managed through with the help of obviously I had a great team of people. We had a lovely working culture, like a family. I was sort of more walking around, making sure that everybody was happy in their jobs, so that they could deliver the results that we collectively could pursue it. So I had a really great experience. But those were the catalysts. And then the other thing was my in-laws at the time lived in Noosa, and I had no family in Australia, and so my ex and I were in Sydney and wanted to live closer to family. So we made that decision, big leap of faith, and found a lovely place. And Noosa is sort of like a paradise. So it has the beautiful climate, stunning beaches, and then also very close to like a tropical rainforest. So it's a lovely lifestyle location. No traffic lights. It's a small town. A lot of tourism, but it's great to raise a family. So that was the driving force awesome. to give up a career and do that. And then I think from there I was supposed to take 6 months off. So I bought a house and started doing gardening. Handed back my BlackBerry.
Yeah,
so it was really cold turkey. And I actually didn't go with a mobile phone for at least a year. And then there's 6 months that I planned to take off to go back and do some kind of work, because I was in my late 30s. It was way too early to retire. And it was also during the GFC.
Yeah.
So I just got into, as I quit my career, I got into share trading and CFDs at the wrong time. So I lost like way too much money.
Oh, listen, I'm telling you, if I would have gotten to Bitcoin when my friend told me about it back in 2004 or 5, oh.
Yeah. Well, the Bitcoin thing's interesting. I'll touch on that in a minute. But so what happened was the 6 months off that I planned became 3.5 years because I was having way too much fun. I started, getting into surfing, paddleboarding, stand-up paddleboarding.
Is that when the sabbatical came in then?
Yeah, exactly. And it was, but so we planned for 6 months and it became 3.5 years. And the last year and a half was really, I couldn't find any work. So despite having had this massive career, moving to a different location where there's no corporate head offices, only sort of small businesses. So I got into consulting, and I thought, hey, someone with my background, I can help small businesses do better. But I learned quickly that it's a totally different ballgame, totally different environment, totally different mindset. And I think it's changed me in the sense that I've been raised in this world of success is measured by money, wealth, and power, and control, and leadership, and all those sort of corporate-y worlds. And even though we were the very best at it, like I've had the privilege of advising peer CFOs in the world's largest organizations all around the world. So whether it was airlines or insurance companies, banks, car manufacturers, governments everywhere, like tax office. We were selling to the tax office and the Department of Defense, and so we were helping these people perform better as a business. And then in small business, people want totally different things. They want a lifestyle, and they don't want to spend money on consultants.
Yeah.
So I learned a few things even in that sabbatical period. And then after 3.5 years, I actually got headhunted to work for a government utility, like a water utility that was restructuring. So all political decisions, and I got in there to set up their finance system, their payroll systems, their IT systems, and then their data warehouse, which was sort of what the data cubes were. And that was when there was a big turnaround in my life, because even though I thought I did a pretty damn good job, and I was saving millions and millions from these analytic powers that the government had never really worked at that level with before. So I was starting to save money from analyzing the gaps in the business by essentially watching every drop of water across the entire value chain, which was complex work. And I was completely new to that industry. So I had to again work with, walk around, talk to people to create a puzzle. And that's sort of, again, that connection with the Rubik's Cube, because I sort of said, hey, we were the most expensive water utility in Australia. And so I got, as the senior analyst, I got asked, hey, can you give us a few reasons why? And so we can talk to the newspapers and explain to the public. And so I just went, and so I quickly found $16 million in lowering the depreciation by extending the life cycle of the assets by another 10 years, which is what all the other utilities were already doing. So I said, well, here's $16 million, so you can lower the water bills by $50 per household. And then they didn't do that. And then I got upset. It's like, hey, this is the answer you asked me. This is our strategy to help our customers lower their water bills. But then when it got to the politicians who were on the board of the water utility, they obviously went the opposite. So they hypocritically sort of went against what they were saying in the news. And this is when I woke up. It's like, holy cow. I escaped the corporate world where everything was about money. But now I'm in the collective sector, in the public, thinking that I was going to serve the public. And then I got to deal with this hypocrisy and this, the politics. Yeah. And that's when I woke up and really thought, like, hey, this isn't just here, this is everywhere. And then when I started looking sort of under the covers, that's when I woke up. And so I'll link that now to Bitcoin. Yeah. Because I was still interested in software technology. And I had a lot of mates locally that were running startups. There were some brilliant people that had, like me, that arrived at Noosa as one of the nicest places on earth to have a lifestyle and to raise kids. And so I recognized there was so much talent around, but they're all individuals. So I started connecting with people at meetup groups and get-togethers and events. And so I got involved in a group that was building a healthcare system with health records on a blockchain, with complete privacy of information, that you as the patient would be in control of your life's health information from cradle to grave, including data from your Apple Watch. And so they're really quite advanced thinkers, and they were building this. And then I went, this is actually true. So see, the logo is the sun, right? So I started thinking about this Icarus deception idea of flying closer to the sun. Yeah. And I got up at sunrise at 5 a.m., take my pedalboard out, and would go to the ocean. So at that beach, at beautiful beaches. And you got to imagine this is a holiday destination that is mostly very, very busy, especially on weekends and public holidays. But because I live there, and if I went to go on a Tuesday morning, I had the whole place to myself. Oh, wow. And I would go out into the ocean, and I would be greeted by dolphins, which at first I thought was a shark. So I was reacting from a place of fear, and I thought, there's a shark, I'm going to die. And then the next minute I realized, oh no, it's not a shark, it's a couple of dolphins, and they're coming to say hello. So how kind of them. And so I started really getting creative from that connection, that relationship I started having with the sun at sunrise. And that sort of connects with, the cosmic nature of this place that we call the universe that we live in, is that everything has meaning and has connection and can open up portals to awareness. And so as I was pedaling, thinking about fixing my workplace, which was a government entity trying to steal from ratepayers to make their jobs easy, essentially, that didn't sit well with me. So I started losing sleep at night. But then I'd wake up and be in this natural, beautiful environment, asking spirit, essentially, for channeling me the solutions. And then with Bitcoin and blockchain, I realized in 2012 that this is it. This is how we're going to escape tyranny. This is how we're going to escape all these problems on Earth. All the suffering is going to end.
Okay.
Because we are going to organize ourselves around decentralized systems. And essentially, we don't need to fight evil or we need to fight the government. We just got to come up with a better plan.
Yeah.
And I realized then that and that's sort of what inspired Vote Holder as a project. So in 2012, 2013, I started talking about, I had a website, I started blogging and saying, hey, this is how we're going to organize for the future on an equal footing as a species, like 8 million people, and then borders will naturally morph into something else. We'll retain the cultures, but at least we can, vote on priorities and solutions as if it was Airbnb. It's a very understandable concept now. But yeah, I came up at Noosa on my pedalboard thinking about how can I measure success beyond wealth, and then nature sort of, so I got this whole balanced view all of a sudden. And then, of course, it became very difficult because for me, seeing that as my truth, knowing that this is going to happen, which is sort of where the psychic abilities first emerged, unrecognized, by the way, so completely unconscious. That's when I started seeing that this is going to happen as if it already had happened. And so I started relaxing a lot more. And that's actually what I think is now the source of happiness, by sort of recognizing at a higher level what's actually occurring. So we're moving from a place that was all controlled by fear towards now more places controlled by love. And it's a difference between masculine and the feminine attributes that we all inhibit. It's just that we're split at birth into either a male biological version or a female biological version of awareness and consciousness, a human being. And now we're starting to see that we have to integrate those energies if we want to be whole, if we want to take off our masks that we got sort of into since childhood, through education, through our parents, through programming, through government, to television, all these things. And we're now starting to see that, hey, that whole control, fear-based narrative is actually not serving us. It actually makes us sick to stay in toxic, to stay work. And I've worked in a water utility, so you can't swim in sewage once you know what you're doing. And the same applies to pretty much every organization now that is hierarchical in nature, because there's almost this unwritten rule that nobody can tell the truth, and everybody knows there's something going on that's not being said. And this is where we're now starting to tap into energy work that's available for everyone. But it does request you to it triggers you to get out of your head and into your heart and start using your intuition.
That was actually my next question for you was what shifted you from spiritual skepticism to psychic counseling?
Yeah, great question, Jay. So it's actually not my idea. I'll say that again. It's like I stumbled into these things, and now looking back, it's like, I feel like an idiot for not knowing this earlier. So what happened was I did become more interested in spirituality slowly, sort of. So the period between I came up with this Vote Holder idea in 2012, I started gradually building that and figuring out a way to, and then everybody's like, no, you're crazy. You're never going to be able to get rid of the government. The government's here. And it's almost like an unwanted, prearranged, narcissistic relationship that we're given at birth that we can't get out of. And if we speak the truth about it, there's a risk that you get, it's unsafe. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I now know it's unsafe because I practically went through a period where my health started being affected physically, so I couldn't sleep at night. I had to go to the doctor, got put on heavy medication, and I was told that I had symptoms of a mental disorder. And I'm like, hang on a minute, I'm a high-functioning CFO who just left a 7-figure job willingly to improve my lifestyle, and now this, as if the problem is me. No, it was very obvious to me that it wasn't a medical. I was never going to accept that as my truth. That it was a medical. The system is what's broken. I just need to, figure out a different path to help fix it for the sake of our children. So that's sort of where the perspective changes once you start. And I think the Dutch culture. So I was never. The Dutch culture is very equal. So there's a lot earlier, there was equality between men and women than most places on earth, I would say.
Yeah.
There's probably a few Scandinavian and Nordic countries, like if you go to Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland, where I had the privilege of working. Those societies are in some ways even more advanced than we were in like the Netherlands or Germany. And so, once you sort of get out of your, and this is where it sort of led me to I got sent actually by a girlfriend of mine at the time. So let me backtrack first, because there's an important part missing there. So since having had some medical issues, not being able to sleep, I did, I went through a separation with my now ex-wife. And then in that process, the family courts in Australia are such that you lose a fair chunk in order of more than 80% of everything that you'd ever worked for, including your retirement fund. Everything just goes in there. So that wasn't the biggest deal. It was sort of a bit of a shock, specifically in our unique situation.
Yeah.
But then a couple of years later, my life started sort of picking up again, and that's when I also, through unfortunate circumstances, started losing access to my children through the family court process. And I immediately saw that I wasn't in a position to combat that, and also I knew too much about that system, how it was already, causing a lot of grief for particularly parents that were facing that, but also the children. Yeah. And I sort of took the position that I'm not going to fight love. Like I didn't choose this path, but I'm not going to fight the people I love. I'm just going to have to take a step back. And it was a very difficult period, I will say. So that's when you sort of meet yourself. You got to look deep inside yourself as to what did I not see coming? What did I do wrong? How could I have done certain things better? And that's a very confronting process that nobody does well, let me rephrase this. I don't think many people willingly choose to find out about their own darkness. And until you do, there's no liberation. So that's sort of, you can't help anyone else if you decide to keep a mask on and just play along with the unwritten rules that you can't change the government, you can't do this, you can't do that, and you can't do sort of things. So I went through that, and I guess still spending a lot of time in that beautiful natural environment. I had to really reassess my entire life, and then through I met a new girlfriend, and for a couple of years we were together, and then she coincidentally went to a psychic, which wasn't particularly her choice either. It was just a recommendation that she received at work. And then she mentioned to this psychic, he said, have you got a boyfriend or a partner in your life? And she said, yeah, his name is Michael. And then he asked for my date of birth. And when she told him, he got a shock, and he said, he wanted to talk, he wanted to know more about me. So she was actually upset for wasting money on the psychic and then being asked about me. But she said, he thinks you're special. You need to go and see him. And I was very much a skeptic of anything that wasn't a cube, data, numbers, finance. I was still very much in that corporate sort of mindset.
Yeah.
Even though, and this was in 2019. So this is 7 years after I left.
So is it your first undeniable psychic experience?
Well, I would actually say that even came later. So it was this psychic. So the psychic, so I went in with severe skepticism, almost with a grin on my face. And I left his first meeting in wonder and in curiosity how this man could have not only known things that he could never have known, or couldn't have found on the internet or anything like that. But he described my past and my future in such great clarity, even though it wasn't spot on right with everything, but there was enough there that made me say, like, this man knows more and I need to know what he knows almost. And I want to, and then I became curious. So I started getting into all these, woo-woo spiritual modalities, this new age stuff. And that wasn't for me either. So I was very much like in this resentment versus, hey, I want to know, but I don't want to do that. And I'm not going to sit in a circle and sing Kumbaya.
Yeah.
But I did go to a crystal shop, bought some moldavite, which I got from a 12-year-old on TikTok, which rang us through to me. And then I started using that with the intention. And that's when I really started noticing things. And I started especially bringing that with me on morning walks. So I lived in the city then. I moved to Brisbane for a couple of years. And so I'd go for, a sunrise walk along the river with my crystal in my hand. And then I started almost like talking to the sun. And that's when I really started realizing the connection. Okay. And it was very clear to me. And then now I can get into this state. I don't even need a crystal anymore. You can get your psyche. And I'm not saying specifically choosing that word carefully. It's not your brain. You got to go from brain to mind to psyche, and the different concepts. But you can get your psyche into a state where you connect your head and your heart. So it's like an inner coherence. Mm-hmm. And then you allow the energy from the sun to go through your body, and it feels electrifying at the heart center. Yeah. And that's what started happening to me with these crystals, with the help of these crystals. And that was the earliest recognition I got, like, holy cow, this is beyond powerful. And I guess then I started noticing things with animals. So I was living in this high rise with a beautiful pool on the top, on the rooftop. And I would go there at 6 a.m., again, at sunrise, usually with a glass of champagne to celebrate.
Yeah.
But I would get birds, like crows, would come and sit with me. So close that I was almost like, hey, this is new. This has never happened before.
Yeah.
As if I was having a relationship with the animals, and they felt safe in my presence for some reason. And that's why I started realizing that, hey, this is actually happening. And then dogs would come up. I had dogs humping my leg when I was charged, and it became uncomfortable. It became really uncomfortable.
More like that happened, not with a dog, but I was at a amusement park, right? And I was sitting on a bench, and all this loud noise and everything. It's Knoebels Amusement Resort in Pennsylvania.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I'm at I'm on this bench and I'm sitting down, and it's in the smoke area, and I don't smoke. My girlfriend does. So I'm just sitting there, like this. And yeah. I just sit there and I start looking to my sides, and I'm like, oh my God, this squirrel comes out of nowhere, comes down the tree, looks at me, and just starts inching his way closer to me. And I'm sitting there and I'm just feeding the squirrel nuts, like right next to me. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, all the loud noise, you would think the squirrel's going to stay in the tree.
Yeah.
But is it the energy then, or is it the attracting energies?
Yeah, I think it's really the energy that's flowing. And I think, it's a bit like if you would have told me what I've just told you, what I experienced like 5 years ago or 4 years ago, I'd say, nah, go away. That's crazy. Yeah. because there wasn't, there's a powerful analogy that I often use in these sort of settings. Is that there's a very clear natural transformation process that happens between a caterpillar and a butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's natural in the way that it goes through its cocoon phase, and then it grows wings, and then it can fly all of a sudden. And it's a bit, we've all had an experience like that, and we just don't think about it. It's not in our, if we live in our heads, that's when we ignore this sort of detail that's not just trivial. It's actually really, and it's like when we, as humans, when we started, from crawling, we went to walking at some point.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the government telling us to do that. It wasn't our parents. We just did that on our own. So there's a number of different levels of intelligence. So there's instinct, intellect, and then intuition, and it's sort of the body, mind, soul perspective. So there's something within us that makes us do things when we are ready, because every child starts walking, around the same time frame, mm-hmm. but not exactly the same. And certainly, between your siblings, it's different. And once you sort of realize that, hey, we went through that, and now we're sort of doing the same thing with this awareness that we're all experiencing. We're just experiencing at different times. And so I'm not special. I wasn't a great student at school. I just worked hard. I wasn't particularly clever. I just started organizing. And now with this awareness business, the channeled message that I got in 2012 that, hey, the government's going to be run by an app, and it's not going to be, we're way too distracted with fear, like with fear-based, with Russia and China and Trump, and then you got in the US, you got the Democrats, and it's always this divisive, fear-based stuff. And so the deduction that I made from my journey was that the corporate world no longer inspired me, because everything was, the highest thing you could achieve was money. And I'd been there. So I'd been to the top of that mountain. I'd seen wealth. I'd traveled first class. I had all the spoils, but it was never the reason why I went into that business, or it was never the driver for me. I just needed to do a good job, so to feel good about myself. So there was a lot of childhood programming and trauma that you can only do that after, when you actually look inside. Which I had to do. and then when I worked for the government, I realized it was all about politics. And then blockchain came along, and it's just a natural, logical way of thinking. It's like, okay, well, obviously now we have decentralized platforms, and it's like everybody's sort of sleepwalking their way into the same awareness, because we're all used Ubers and Airbnbs. Mm-hmm. We're aware of sharing economies that have come, and they're still corporations. So don't get me wrong. There's still only a cocoon version of what we're going to have, because still those are rich people getting, people that are focused on wealth. Yeah, the pursuit of wealth, which in the Bible is not necessarily a good thing, is so they're still in control of all these schemes. But now there's solutions coming up that are decentralized versions. So like in the Middle East, I think it's in the Emirates, there's a startup called Drive. DRIFE, which is essentially Uber, but without a head office. So it's a decentralized version of it. So if you start thinking about all those sharing economy apps like Airbnb, you can sort of start thinking of Vote Holder as the Airbnb of government, where people meet to decide on priorities. And then they collaborate on solutions. So it's sort of the market of supply and demand for governance. I got you. We all know, and we've been shown how much waste there is. Whether it was Elon Musk or Big Bull, whoever was behind. There's so much government waste, and in Australia it's even crazier. Like Australia is almost like a subsidiary of the US. But the amount of, and we're only a small nation by comparison. Australia's 27 million people. Yeah. There's a lot of immigration now. So we all got housing problems, all the same problems that happen in Europe. We're just always a bit later. But the US is 338 million, I think. So we're like 10% of the US's size. but we still have 8 states that have 8 different governments and 8 different ways to register your motor car and 8 different fees that you have to pay, whether you're in Sydney or in Brisbane or in Melbourne. And then I got into water and water quality. And here in Australia, we have 8 different guidelines for public pools, where a lot of kids get sick and have asthma, and some unfortunately die from that. And the government is not interested. They're just, no, this is how we do it. This is, it's a narcissistic way of we know, and you need to just
yeah,
and you can't change it. And so I'm more and more become defiant. But what I've learned is that so we're transitioning from hierarchies to harmony. So from fear-based systems that keep us in that fear fight mode, between top and bottom, between left and right, all these sort of divisional sort of aspects, we're all moving towards love, towards organizing around a central principle. And without truth, there is no love. That's sort of like it sounds close to biblical, and I wasn't raised religiously, because you don't need the stories. They're helpful to a degree, but they're also equally divisive. So if religion is dished out based on your birth location, then there's syncretism in there. There's things that are beautiful, but there's also questions. And I asked those questions when I first was a child in a religious education. I went through a religious school because it was the best school in my hometown.
Yeah.
And because I knew nothing about religion, I started asking questions, and I got in trouble. I got sent to the headmaster.
It's all in this book. Read it.
Yeah, exactly. So why this book? Well, isn't there more books? And now the beauty now is we have AI. So all the books are part of AI.
Yeah.
So AI, in that sense, if used correctly, and that's all we have to learn as humans, is to start asking better questions. And I got lucky. So Cognos, one of the first marketing campaigns was, I've got it on my YouTube somewhere, is about, questions need answers. And there's a bunch of kids sitting around a boardroom table asking, why is the sky blue and why can't we live on the moon?
Yeah.
And again, relative to the galactic nature of the podcast, those questions are still out there. Why can't we live on the moon? And I think what we now see is that we are starting to know things, and we're starting to discuss things on public forums. And I know that in your platform, there's obviously connection with UAPs and that realm. Is I don't know if you have questions about that you want to get into.
Oh no, I mean we were going to get into that in a little bit down here, but
okay.
I was going to say what types of psychic readings or strategic consultations do you offer?
Oh, yeah, great question. Thanks. I've how did it happen? Let's just give you the short. It's I started using somewhat more spiritual language, and actually I changed my title on LinkedIn to Psychic CFO, and that caused mayhem because there's those two things don't typically mix. That never used to. And so, but my journey obviously I started getting more into psych, and I started realizing after the fact that, hang on a minute, I got this channeling through my surfing in nature with God, with the sun, almost as a proxy for godliness. And so I just started using that term. And then, so on LinkedIn, I got contacted by a lady from the US, who just asked. He said, Michael, is there any chance you do readings, psychic readings? And so I said, yeah, sure I do. I never done one before. And I told her, I explained, I said, well, that's actually, thank you for that question. I'm really flattered and humbled. And I want to do that for you. But what I will have to do is, it'll take me a bit of time. I will codify my own experience. And with the use of some tools, I will do one for you. All I need is your date of birth, your full name, and your place of birth. And so what I started doing is, initially I used a random selection of different websites, and I got into numerology, astrology, human design, and a few other bits and pieces. And so I cobbled together a report, which was something like 15 pages. It took me like 2 hours to do, 2 to 3 hours, the first one. And then I started presenting that. I started doing that with more people. And the more I did it, the more people were saying, hey, this is amazing. I wish we, and that was my own experience as well. Like I'm in my late 50s now, and I've only been doing this for the last couple of years. And I'm like, if I look at my own reading, what the internet knows about your date of birth, your place of birth, the meaning of the planets in your orbit, and the energy that you can sort of take from that, which is now obviously all amplified by AI, is so powerful. Like, hey, well, why didn't I get this as a child? And so my brain was already reinventing the world's education system, which I'm now heavily involved in, by the way. So it's exciting. Like I couldn't be more excited about where everything is heading, and I couldn't be happier and more confident as well. But essentially, that's so I started developing that process further. And since I've done about 50 to 60 people, and then I actually stopped doing it for a while. But what I started doing is I essentially written this massive prompt question that I ask of several different AI engines. Mm-hmm. And I ask it to produce a 20-page report, and it goes into astrology, numerology, the meaning for that particular person. It goes into their journey in life, what their potential things are for the future. Mm-hmm. It goes into what would have been a great educational trajectory for them if they look backwards. Yeah. It goes into past lives, and I know that that's dangerous territory. And I don't know enough of that myself. I know there's experts that do it, past life regression, and they've been doing it specifically for that period or for that purpose. And so I refer people there. If they want to know more, then go there. But from the report that I do, it will tell you something about what your soul level is. There's a concept called evolutionary astrology by Jeffrey Wolf Green, and that sort of talks about the stages of the soul. So I do my computer business intelligence analytics things with that. So I go and ask the cube, the AI database cube, very deep questions. Mm-hmm. And it comes back with very deep answers. Then I take them to my morning walks on the beach when I talk to the sun, and my awareness grows every day. And so I'm sort of really starting to look at how can we use this collectively. And it's happening. Like the reason why we are talking and why other people are starting to sort of organize around these principles, they're very different than what we were taught at school or what our parents passed down on us. And it's not their fault. It's just the evolution of consciousness that we all share. It's all around the concept of love and oneness. And I guess we started, my technical functional specialty is to simplify corporations' board reports to a single measure of success. And it's not money. And so I've started doing that professionally. Yeah, then that's a consulting job where, I could earn a very good day rate doing that, except I don't want to do that no more. Yeah. Because that whole world to me is like swimming in sewage. Like I have to swim upstream against what the experienced people think they know about success and performance, but they're still stuck in the share market and in governments and in committees. And so there's a whole new wave coming. So to go back to the question, so now I have a query where literally I can help someone in under a minute produce a 25-page report, and I would know so much about that person. And then I'd have these conversations online over Zoom. I've got people that have done this for worldwide. Yeah. And they've all almost in unison said, hey, that is amazing. For 80% of what we go through, it resonates as deep truth that they've always sort of suspected, that they've known, and that they can then go into the future with a lot more, there's just general awareness, but that translates to career success. So now I'm sort of working on several startups still in water. We started working with water professionals because our DNA is like 90% water, and we're not looking after it. So our water management systems are still based in that fear mentality. through governments, through corporations. They need to make money. They need to make money. They don't care about the water. They just need to make money. I mean, they say they care about water, and they do too, but they're just getting it wrong because they're using chemicals, and they're not using the right filtration techniques, and they're trying to save. When they build something new, they're trying to save in their procurement processes because they're driven by not, more by money than by care.
Yeah.
And essentially, this is where these people are all going to be aware at some point that they can't lie to their children. So if you're sort of in that mindset still of fear and you don't see what you're contributing to, that's a very difficult realization that a lot of people still have yet to make. And I don't want them to be upset about it. This is the thing. If you come from a place of love, you can't fight the hierarchy. So now there's a lot of people that spreading truths. They have, and I was one of them not long ago. So I was in that movement where, hey, question this, question that, and then Epstein. What about Epstein? We all know. We don't need the files. We all know. But what we need to question is why, and who.
Yeah.
And then almost we gotta. And this is sort of now where I'm starting to go with having relationships with politicians, where I'm actually telling them, I said, hey, your job is going to go away. I'm working on it. I have been working on it for, 13 years now.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to go away. It's just a matter of time. And the more successful I am, the quicker it will go away. But I don't want it to sound like you're losing something.
No, you're gaining something better.
I want to help you in this transition. You just got to be aware of it. And of course, it's difficult because it's like a butterfly teaching a caterpillar what it means to fly. And the caterpillar doesn't want to know and this has no concept. And so the caterpillar can only see that at their own time. But I think where we are now as a collective a species level is that a lot of people walking around with a lot of questions. And why isn't this happening? Why isn't that happening? But we got to get out of that and really look at ourselves and what our role is in having manufactured that. And I'm not taking myself out of that equation. And it's part of the reason why that corporate world no longer fulfilled me, because I said, look, if the driver is stockholder value, shareholder value, then obviously that's in a zero-sum game. Some people are losing, whereas others are winning, and we see that like the inequality is insane at this point. And because I work so close with the CEO of the Australian tax office, we call him the tax commissioner here. We spoke about this one-on-one, whereas I said, hey, you bought our software now. What are you going to do with it? And it wasn't a financial thing. It was more like a process flow thing that they were measuring.
Yeah.
But I started having questions like, why are you doing tax in Australia? Tax is so complicated. They've got so many rules.
Yeah.
And so through the taxation systems, our regulators could easily change situations. And so the underlying economic thing that your viewers should sort of be aware of is that if you look at how we tax capital, like assets, and look at how we tax labor, and once you see that picture, you're in a wrong game if you're still supporting that system, because essentially you're disrespecting yourself. You just don't want to realize it, or you don't realize it, or you don't want to realize it. And that's where now I analyze employee satisfaction scores at big businesses, and the answers are all on the internet. Like, and so, it's like that same thing about darkness is the absence of light.
Yes.
And the light is shining brighter every day, and it's not going to go away. So the evolution of consciousness, even if you're sort of struggle with the concept of time and space, the evolution of consciousness is undeniable, and it's already here. So it's like, and that's sort of where the psychic bit comes in. So I recognized unconsciously that I was channeled this idea of changing the government. And it was such a big idea that I did nothing with it for 4 years. Even though I knew
to ask that question too. See, we have to be connected somehow because
we all are, yeah.
What's the role of consciousness in governance in your view? That's what I was going to ask.
Wow, that's a big one. The role of consciousness in government. Yeah. Well, the best way that I can sort of approach that, and I've been down that path. So I'm part of the blockchain. It's called the All Things Blockchain community. A big shout out to Matt and the team here in Australia. There's a really good group of people that are trying to advance decentralized organizations, blockchain based, and they got like every month there's a night, speakers, there's 50-60 people are coming, they put pizzas on and free beers and everything. So it's a popular and they're really interesting people and interesting stories. And so I've been going to these, and I've never been asked to speak, funny enough. But I always have questions, or normally I have questions, and I talk to the people. And it's interesting, the observation that I have is there's a lot of interest in blockchain, but it's confused. So there are people that are there. And the other thing that is interesting to watch is there used to be only males, and now there's women starting to show up. But between the audience, there's always there's more young people than sort of more senior ones, more mature ones, put it that way. But at least 60 to 70%, I would say, carefully, are there for the wrong reason. So they're seeing it as, oh, there's new tech, we need to be on the hype, we need to make more money, we need to see this as the next way to make a quick buck. And that's the wrong attitude. So that's not why it got released in the first place, by ever whom that was. Yeah. But I do see there's people, and then there's people, this answers your questions probably better, is there's people that want to regulate it in Australia. And so I question is like, well, in the purest form of why decentralized systems started in the first place, why would you want to regulate it within put a ring fence around it, and then you're going to give it to the, and this is sort of what happened to Bitcoin, which I know for a fact, particularly since my separation, is that the tax authority and the government, they already have all your data. And I'll take that a step further. So what we're afraid of here in Australia is this digital ID at the moment. That's the latest fear thing, that card that they play.
Yep.
And I'm telling people that it doesn't matter. They already have everything. They have all your financial information. They have all your birth. They have your vaccination status. They know exactly who you are, where you are. They have your mobile phone data. They can track you, even though you switch your location service off.
Yeah. There's
nothing you can do that they don't already know. So if you see that system as fear, then stop playing and or just be aware that that's what's playing and use it against itself. And that's sort of where the role in governance. So there's people at the blockchain conferences that are dying to get rules around it. And I know there's obviously a need to protect it from fraud and to put scam, because they're all around. Scamsters are everywhere. But if designed properly in its purest form, like Bitcoin is undeniably now started in 2008, 2009. So it's been around for quite a while. It's the crypto world, last time I checked, was something worth like $2.7 trillion. And so there's very little assets against that. So the Bitcoin is still only an idea. There's no gold behind it or nothing.
Yeah. And
so to the tune of $2 trillion, investors are now believing that it's robust enough for them to put their money into that bucket. So to regulate it, which has now happened with Bitcoin through the exchanges. So whenever there's an interface between the old system and the new system, i.e. the decentralized system and the centralized system, they get you at the border, at the intersection. So if you want to buy a loaf of bread with a debit card, that's against your crypto, they know. And so the government, they will tell you on your tax return, hey, we noticed that you've had a cryptography transaction. And then they'll ask, did this cause you a capital gain? Yes or no? And then you have to declare it. And but they don't go quite back to the early days, because it started somewhere in 2017, 2018 maybe. And that's what I can see here in Australia anyway. But so having spoken with the regulator in Australia who's making the rules around Bitcoin, we've had this discussion. I've basically told them, said, you're chasing shadows, because now there's holochain, and we don't even need the internet to make this work. Like, we can do this on mesh radio technology with old Nokias. There's ways in which we can make, and we can go back to a cache-based system. It's just that the more that the fear-based control system exposes itself, the more people start waking up. So we're in this balance, we're in this cocoon phase now, where there's more and more people organizing for the future, and that's that's why I commend you for what you do, Jay, and how you've. I found out. I got up in the middle of the night, so I had a quick look, and I saw you had a Discord group as well. So I'd recommend all the viewers to start engaging with what you do and with your audience, and I look forward to contributing. And that's what we're doing. We're actually creating a complete new network of people that are asking different questions. But from a good place, like from a place of love. We're not trying to, like this. So I've went to the point where I sort of said, I'm not going to sell my services.
Yeah.
Because if I do that, I'm just like Anthony Robbins, who's still filling stadiums for $1,000 a day. I don't know what he charges, but his message hasn't really changed all that much. He's not speaking about truth. He's not speaking about. There's a lot of people that know things and that's sort of what, so we're familiar now with this term 0 point energy.
Yes.
Right. We've had free energy for decades. It's just been suppressed. And that's sort of, that cat's out of the bag. Ashton Forbes, Stephen Greer, they're all talking about the Disclosure Project. And it's almost like it's guided awareness to wake people up softly and slowly. But the question has to be asked: why did we not do this a long time ago? And why are we still not answering those questions? Why are people like Elon Musk, supposedly Elon Musk, why are they pretending not to know about this? That it's that we have teleportation capacity, and so the narrative of the controllers is either wide open, it's being lost, but at least it's being questioned, and at least we're talking about it, and at least now people are connecting. So this free energy group also has a Discord server, and there's thousands of people now that are starting to connect these questions. And the only additional point that I'm trying to make is what I do now from a psychic perspective, and I'm still a newbie, so I might disagree with myself tomorrow, but I am learning a lot, and I'm actually excited by that. I'm excited to, at my late, relatively 58, I'm still learning more than I did for decades in the past, and I do that on all levels. So not just, about what you eat, how you spend your own energy, about relationships, about interacting with others. But now we're working with a group on multidimensional wellness, on individuated education. So we're going to start the education system with the end in mind and reverse engineer it.
Okay.
So not the batch processing that has been happening, which everybody complains about. But it's not that hard to really think about, if you had no constraints. And that's sort of what I do with the psychic readings as well. I tell people okay, now awareness is the first bit, which is really about, are you aware that your spiritual markers involve things like astrology, numerology? And if you're interested in that, here's a report. It's 20 pages. You can talk about it. Yeah. But then we're going to say, okay, well, now that you know that information, my question to you is, if you were to have godlike powers, i.e., which you do, because you were born, you're here, you are. If you were to use those powers in the most beautiful way, like the most benevolent way that you can serve others, which is a gift to be able to do, it's privilege, then what would you do if there were no constraints? So try and forget for a moment that you have all the money in the world, all the time. You can travel anywhere. You can even travel to other planets. What would you change if you had that kind of power? And then it's a big, deep question. And people, usually what I'm finding is people need time to be able to first hear the question and sit with it. And then, but I've had a couple of, people that I've worked with that have read these reports who've come up with incredibly creative ideas and startups essentially that are now talking to multi-million-dollar investors. They're saying, "Hey, we believe in what you do," and it's sort of like I'm very humbled and privileged if I played a tiny role in that sort of raising of awareness.
Yeah, same here. Same here. That's why, I'm glad to have you on, and put your information out, that you have. And so question, you move between the worlds of finance, tech, and spirituality. Do you see them as one path or multiple that are going into a single path?
Well, so a bit of both, I guess. It's like
Okay.
I just look at it as a Rubik's cube. So
Yeah.
there's different paths, the different dimensions, different layers, and that's sort of where the closer we get to shining a light on everything, including spirituality. It's very hard to dismiss, right? It's very hard to dismiss that there is a something. And so I'll tell you this: so that the technology connection is actually relevant to help people in the way of thinking about this. And it is we all have one of these.
Yeah.
Shouldn't be advertising greedy corporations, but we all have a mobile phone that is wireless and that works on a frequency with a connection of airwaves. And what we can do with that wonderful technology is we can have one-on-one conversations in real time on different parts of the planet. We can send a tweet that could potentially reach 8 billion people in a second, like a millisecond, right? That's the technology we have. And yet it's got no wires, it's got no hardware. So how does that work? It works, this, the telco, the frequency, 5G, 4G, but it does everything. It does our visuals, it does our voice. It can't do smell yet, but it does a lot of things. And
it's
so
getting pretty close to that.
Yeah, and I think what psychic abilities are just the repressed abilities that we all have as equals that allow us to connect telepathically with others, irrespective where they are. And I've seen this in real life, so that's part of the reason why I'm so excited about it. I met a lady, it must be 8 years ago now, here in Brisbane, and she was from San Francisco, and she actually said, we sort of exchanged, why are you here? And she said, I'm measuring the energy. I said, I'm actually a measurement expert from a business perspective. How do you measure energy? She said, I just read the room. I sort of pick up and I count in my head. She had a methodology. And I said, wow, that's fascinating. I want to know more about this. So we talked about it. And then she essentially said that she had a traumatic upbringing, childhood, so raised in some sort of cult-like situation, and experienced abuse, and then she sort of got out of that. And this is the gift that she developed since then. And then I witnessed her do it during Facebook live groups with people all over the world, where she was literally helping people with their frequency and their energy, with health problems, with financial problems, with relationship problems, all these sort of things. And so she had an ability to tap into energy. And having met her personally, I could sense it. I could feel it. She wasn't making it up. She wasn't doing it to make $1. And now she's running retreats, and she's got a whole platform about it. And there's more. And now the area where I live near Noosa is called the Sunshine Coast. It's sort of an area that has attracted a lot of people that are freer, more liberal, that sort of are working in these sort of energy style, spiritual modalities. There's a lot of hypnotists and all these sort of people. So we're starting to connect with each other, and now we're just gotta, So I think the awareness is just evolving so rapidly now that we can actually really look at what the world would look like if we can live without the constraints of the fear-based systems, because there's enough food on the planet, there's enough transportation methodology, enough energy, there's way more energy than we've ever had. But the thing is, the control systems are still centralized utilities with water bills and the chemicals, and they can't. It's very difficult for them to get out of that thinking until they realize that the harm that's in that system is not just the poisoning of the water with chemicals, it's the toxicity of the operating model of hierarchy. So if we're born as equals under whatever God we sort of believe in, the golden rule applies, and we should start organizing like that, which will benefit the planet, will keep everybody happy, healthy, and yeah.
So what does awareness, transformation, and manifestation mean to you in practice?
Well, there's sort of proxies for that natural evolution from caterpillar to butterfly, if I'd say. So even at a collective level, unity consciousness that we all have, like we all come here with information that pre-exists our current life, physical life. And that's dependent on location, it's dependent on your lineage, but it's also dependent on the snapshot of the stars and what year you were born, and even the hour of the day that you were born. And I didn't make this up. This is all sort of multi-dimensional layers of a cube, I guess. Other people, like there's Santos Bonacci, there's so many people I could mention that sort of formed that structure. So so the stages of awareness is, the first thing is to be curious about learning and ask better questions. So if there is something that's not quite right, that doesn't feel quite right, if you either have relationship problems or wealth-based problems, or your work isn't your dream work, then be aware of that. And awareness, so this is an Osho quote, who said, darkness is merely the absence of light. If you want to do something with darkness, you got to do something with light. And it's the same with the ego. So the ego that we all have, the ego is the absence of self-awareness, of fuller self-awareness of the whole self. And then you go to psychology, like Jung and Freud and Schopenhauer. There's a lot of Nietzsche. There's a lot of psychologists that have studied this. They will. So if you use all that information and throw it in the cube, and then just look at what you want the cube to look like. So then you transform the cube. Essentially, you got to start making your own changes, how you want the world to be, and you can do that very simply, right now, from a health perspective. From a work perspective, from a relationship, but also from a information consumption perspective. So if you stay in the fear-based system, trying to work out who's right, who's wrong, you're still in that divisional system. So, and you can't fight your way out of that. So you can't fight out of that. I tried and failed. I got fired every job where I started speaking the truth. I got fired. Well, I got separated from my wife because I started seeing things differently. And that's been repetitive until I've said that I don't want to fight no more. This is a Michael Jackson song. Like, I'm a lover, not a fighter. And essentially that's it. So you're moving from a hierarchical system to a love-based system, and then you can organize around water, for instance, as a principle. So I've sort of said water is an important part that humanity as a species, we all have an equal interest. And nothing unites us better than water or the love of water, because we all need it. We are it. So let's upgrade the water management systems and not get greedy corporations put chemicals in the water supply or in the waterproofing products that line the sewer pump stations that seep into the water table in the land. And they're called forever chemicals for a reason. The PFAS chemicals are dangerous. It's like what we're building now is essentially, we have a situation that is way worse than Chernobyl, what happened in Russia with this nuclear reactor, but we don't realize it because there's no explosion, so it's not on the news. But this poisoning of humanity through the agency of all the structures and institutions that we've built is like a plane crash happening in slow motion over a 30-year period that we cannot escape. It's in our blood. So there's a Dr. Anna Michalcea, I think her name is. She analyzes blood at a microscopic level, and she's essentially saying our blood cells are like construction zones for, that were programmed like bots. Yeah. And so there's a way to unprogram that, but you got to first be aware. So if you're aware, that's step one. Then you can make your own, steps to inform yourself better. to start changing life decisions, to move to different areas, to start choosing other workplaces. And then in doing that, you might as well try and manifest your childhood dreams, or what you were born with, what you're meant to be. You're discover and explore your divine purpose. And that's your relationship with, I guess, the universe, so galactic. So we're back at the galactic.
Yeah, right.
And then so the aspect of it is it's a journey that we're all on regardless. So we might as well be conscious of it. And then once you sort of have a cause where you can sort of say that I'm completely aligned at a soul level, that's what I want to devote my future days on, then we can reverse engineer that. And the people that are on that same journey, they want to get on the bus with you. So that's sort of what's happening now. We're starting to connect people that are ready to start, exploring the truth. They don't want to swim in sewage, so to say. And
we have a good question from one of our subscribers, UFO Report. Is there any evidence that
hallucination?
Yeah, I can't say that word, but
yeah, thanks, Jim, for your question. I'll be really honest. I don't even know what that means, but
yeah, that's
I can try and interpret the question.
Something about hallucinations are in some cases ESP. Maybe your intention, or you're putting your thoughts out can sometimes cause something to happen. Maybe that's what he's trying to.
Well, that's something that we all have to discern for ourselves. I've now become convinced through my own experiences that you can literally, we have such innate powers within us, but we have been distracted out of them since childhood, early childhood, I would say as well. So, and I'll give you another example. So I grew up in Amsterdam. My university was in the heart of the city, and there were coffee shops where, soft drugs are sold legally there. And so, I grew up and I went clubbing and did all the things that everybody does. But neither myself nor any of my circle that I grew up with from my hometown ever touched any drugs, not soft drugs, not hard drugs. And it was so easily accessible in Amsterdam. Then I moved to Australia, and I said, "Oh, I'm from the Netherlands," and they're like, you're into all these drugs and all these." And so, no, that's not the case. And there's actually an interesting theory around that. And so I've never really gone down that path until recently. Someone sort of said, "Hey, you got to go and do ayahuasca." And I said, "No, I don't think I need that. I'd much more take something to keep me calm and grounded, so I'm not always in my head." And that's how you create that coherence between head and heart. And that, I think, is the portal to higher awareness.
So do you do meditation or?
Sorry?
So do you do a meditation in the morning, or do you do energy work or anything with yourself?
I've tried meditation, as people call meditation, and I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. So
everybody has a different kind of
right, and that's totally fine. That's the same thing with all there's so many modalities that people can get into. There's light therapy, there's sound therapy, there's tuning forks, there's sitting still on a hill trying not to think of, there's whatever works for you. There's tarot cards. Like people ask those sort of questions because there's a widespread a box of Pandora of what can happen. I guess in my case, it's obviously, for me, it's the sun. So my method is, and like I said, I started doing this initially with crystals. Like if you go to an authentic crystal shop, ask if you can hold the largest piece of moldavite that they have, and what you're holding is a stone that's purportedly only found in southern Germany, Austria, that area, the Donau River, where a meteor struck Earth 15 million years ago, and that melted with Earth materials, and it formed this. It's not even a crystal; it's a tektite, but it feels like a stone. It's green. It's beautiful if you get a good one, and you can feel the electricity rush through your body if you hold that stone in your hand.
I've got a moldavite in here with there's a magnet around it, around the outside, and it intensifies the energy.
Yeah. And so once you've worked with that, Jay, you'll know. Like I've had people have immediate emotional reactions because I had two big pieces, and I had people saying that knew about it said, "Yeah, you're crazy walking around with that." And then in those days, I was still very, the thick veil, I guess. So It doesn't do anything for me. But then I started recognizing it, and now I leave them at home. I don't need them anymore. But so that's my practice. So I go and I literally I can put myself in a state that I go out. For me, it's sunrise at a beach, walking on bare feet as much as I can, and then I essentially have the intention of I want to solve a problem. Mental made Rubik's Cube, I guess.
Yeah.
And I draw in the energy of the sun. And it's like as if it goes through your head, through your body, into the earth.
Okay.
So it grounds, and it's like it comes back, and then it's sort of, I feel it in my heart center, I guess, in the center of my body. And it's an electrifying feeling. And then you can do anything with that energy. So I'm sort of then intentionally trying to connect with people, and I don't really do their past life. There's psychics that do that. They're really good at it. But I'm more thinking about how can I solve the education system? How can I help people not have shitty jobs that they hate, but they feel they have to do to pay the mortgage, send the kids to school? And I think those solutions are all there. They're very easy, actually, but they won't happen until there's a tipping point of consciousness. So we're sort of awaiting a species level dark night of the soul, where we tip from past consciousness to future consciousness, as if there is a clear time mark. And I think it's happening.
So do you see
it's happening over a long time?
So do you see humanity moving toward greater unity or deeper division, or is it going to be a combination of both?
No question that we're the only way is we're going to be more united than ever. And I think the puppets at the global stage, the geopolitical space, they're all actors, right? So if you try to imagine, what's happening at that level, there's a lot of things that need to change. So and if this was happening like a newsflash tonight at 8 p.m. and Trump would go on and say, "Hey, we've struck a deal. We're going to just do everything different." And a lot of people have been stealing money, so the share market's going to end. All the people that. So the Epstein is an interesting situation, right? So the whole world has been told essentially what went on, and yet still we don't see visibly anyone's being arrested. And I think the question I ask is, where do you draw the line? And it's the same with the COVID thing. Like there's plenty of evidence that suggests that there was foul play in that pandemic because it was in lockstep all around the world, and there's 5G, there's all these stories, right? Yeah. And it's impossible, unless you were there, it's impossible to reconstruct this, like a scrambled egg that can't be unscrambled. However, we have a scrambled egg, and we don't want we want a poached egg. So what we got to do is to sort of ask ourselves, where do we draw the line, but also look within, which behaviors can we change that would, no longer have these situations reoccur.
Okay.
And in a way, and and again, I'm not a biblical scholar by any means, but there are these things about washing away sins, and I think what's happening is that justice will be organic and more psychic than it is going to be played out in courtrooms. There aren't enough courtrooms or lawyers or judges on the planet to try all the cases the way that they try cases, if that makes sense. Yeah. So the amount of abuse that happened on that island, they can't possibly. And where do you draw the line with the COVID thing as well? Like take the people that started it or that started selling, the Pfizer shots and this and that, and all the deaths that came from that. Or are you going to look at the governments and the politicians and then the lower level politicians and the CEOs of the businesses that said, "Hey, you can't come to this business unless you." So you got to draw a line somewhere. And so we all have complicity in whatever we've together created. And so further division is an absolute no-no. And there's now this awakening is happening so rapidly, and it's undeniable as well. Like I'll debate anyone. Like I would love to have a
I would
conversation
too.
with Trump, but you're not going to get one. The other thing is, I'll give you another one, which is this is gonna maybe alienate some of the viewers.
Well, it's like with there's okay. Let's go with this. There's proof that the psychic ability is, can manifest and change people's emotions that are around that person. Meaning 10,000 people in Chicago, they meditate. The next month, what happens? Crime rate goes down by 25%.
Yeah.
Proven fact.
Yeah, good point. And so what's happening is, I'll tell you, a friend of mine, so I've been connecting with people in groups like yours, of different, and some of this Discord groups with like 15,000 people that are talking about 5D and star seeds. And I don't go too far into those things because there are already people there that are doing great jobs. I don't want to interfere.
Yeah.
But there's someone I met in one of these things has now become a close friend. She's in Mexico City, and she's starting a school page to teach people telepathy. And I've seen her do it. She's amazing. She's also got a story of her own that she needs to tell herself. But she has got that gift, and she's a young, beautiful woman. She will attract so many people to her courses that want to get in. But there is a warning there. There's a warning that once you take the step and invest in your own awareness, you can never unsee what you will see.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're comfortable not knowing the truth in your life and to pass away at some point in the future, just doing your tax returns on time, that's your choice, and that's good. It's good that there are people like that. Otherwise, houses would never be built, and buses wouldn't. And I'm not saying that to diminish, but it's a personal choice as to how much people are willing to be aware. Now, what I want to do is I want to create systems where we don't have to make that choice. We just, unite under, under in the galaxy and start safely exploring ways to give people access to free energy, because we could solve all the health problems. Like what we're doing now with the education system is actually fascinating. To really sort of think about kids and like if I go back, what I've learned recently, if I'd known that when I was 12 under proper guidance and within guardrails, like not be silly about it, but my life would have turned out very differently. And I would still be in touch with my kids, which currently I'm not, for a temporary period, but I would have made different choices in life, and it's not to say that there are regrets, but they were in time and space at the time. They were the things that happened under the information that we had then, which is sort of what the people say about the COVID thing as well. But now that I know, I want to help kids not make those mistakes and not waste decades learning skills. Like in Australia, they're charging $150,000 for an MBA degree, which is bad knowledge, and it's essentially a mortgage. And don't even get me started on computer games. There's programming that happens at a young age within computer games.
I was just about to ask too. You see this again, me and you again. See, like it's connection. Like, what role does technology play in human awakening? Ally or obstacle?
Yeah.
Or is it both? Because you can mistreat technology to a point where it's unethical.
Oh, well, there's plenty of evidence of that, Jay. So the interesting comparison I started making is, so about 2,000 years ago, I think we all sort of universally agree what year it is, 2025, so across religions. But about 2,000 years ago, maybe a bit longer, books started appearing. We started to be able to write, but in different locations, there were different books, holy books, and they're all in their local areas are seen as truth. So the role that technology plays. So let me make another point about those books. So whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, or a Hindu, there's evidence of those thoughts and belief systems being used for good and for bad reasons. People fight over it, people kill over it, but there's also a lot of wonderful, devout believers that do good things based on the back of those books and those belief systems.
Mm-hmm.
Now what we have universal access to, so anyone that has a technological or access to a technological device and an internet connection has access to an AI engine where all those books are already included. And so you can actually ask a higher level question of all of the holy books, which essentially diminishes religion to bits and bytes. And so the skill that we need to ask, and this is sort of what I intuitively always taught my girls, my young children, is to question everything, to shine bright, and to never grow up. And I think that's I wasn't even, so this was before I went all spiritual.
Yeah.
Essentially, I still believe that was good advice. And I'm trying hard to unprogram some of my earlier belief systems and also to be true to myself. So that's why I sort of say, I could be a consultant and earn $4,000 a day if I wanted to. I just don't, I can no longer do that because it would violate my new awareness.
Yes.
So I would be contributing to a system that I think is dying. It's collapsing in rapid pace on evolutionary terms, right? This is not happening. This transition, this transformative cocoon period that we're all collectively in, is something that plays out over decades. Like if you just look at the Trump presidency in the U.S. that started in 2016, that's now 9 years ago. And things changed then, and you can believe what they put on the television. If you go on Twitter, a lot of people believe, the Democrats and the Republicans and Charlie Kirk. We all have to have an opinion immediately because that's what the news cycle demands. But if you believe in that system, you got to ask a serious number of questions, because what you see doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The debt. So as a former CFO, I sort of understand how the financial world works. And that's that there's a lot of debt in the system. In the US, it's now something like 37 trillion. So imagine being a baby born, and we had this idea of representative government. Made sense then. It doesn't anymore, because now if we can book an Airbnb or a pizza within under a minute, then why don't we upgrade our systems of governance? It's not like anyone's really clapping for those systems anymore. And we have the technology. So something is holding it back. And obviously that's awareness. So people still believing, because I'm including myself again. So our entire livelihoods were made dependent on that system operating reasonably effectively. And it has, and it still does in some degrees. The fact that we can have this call is a testament of that. So we don't want that to go away. But in the system that we created, someone has to pay for it. And now you look at the income inequality and the social inequality, and what they've done to sexual awareness and sexual health. You only have to look at the rise of OnlyFans. It's crazy what's happening. And then, so there's this interesting mix now between our relationships where, but through awareness, we can help each other and heal each other out of it. But you got to face yourself. And that's the hard part. That's why a lot of people are not ready yet. They're just still relatively comfortable or too comfortable in the caterpillar state, and they're looking for other caterpillars to crawl together with, because the fear of change is greater than the fear of not being fully aware.
Yeah, I know with me, I'm actually working with a company right now called the Vertex Foundation, and we're working with, all right, I'm the lead field research officer, and we're doing machine-assisted consciousness exploration studies.
Wow.
Almost like the God helmet, but I can't get into specifics.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do thought communication to thought, like actual thought transfer communication. Somebody's wearing this helmet. You walk around, you're in a building, and say like all the employees are bank tellers. They're all wearing this helmet, or they're all wearing it. They can all hear everything they're thinking and everything. this girl is scared at the end because a guy came up with a banknote saying, this.
Yeah.
Guess what? She already knows at the end the guy did that, and she's already pushing the button. It's like it's already like connected psionically that way. So that's kind of what we're trying to get at with the company I'm working with now.
Yeah, that's a fascinating project. It actually makes me think of a few people I've met and experiences I've had. So I've worked with augmented reality tools, and
yes,
I know someone who is a trauma coach healer, who's also very aware of neuroscience and uses technology to measure brain. And the things that her analysis alone tells a story that men and women respond differently to stress, and the different parts of the brain fire up. So that's an interesting data point. Then there's a lady who I know who is an original, like an indigenous culture lady who has been working with the indigenous community that have a lot of social problems in Australia, the Aboriginal communities, particularly with youth. So they tend to have more prevalence of diseases, lack of inspiration at school. They get in touch with police, substance abuse, all the problems that you can sort of imagine are more prevalent in those communities. And the institutional approach itself has found that, hey, we're not helping these kids by dragging them to courts, hospitals, putting them on medication. The schools aren't working for them. We need to do something else. So this lady was asked to run a program. So she's very connected with universities to do neuroscience work. Yeah. And so she's now physically reprogramming the brains of those children to make them, with colors and shapes and like networks that are traditionally assigned with the culture of the indigenous. And the beauty about Australia is it has, and I've traveled there. I've traveled to the Arnhem Land and Kakadu, where a lot of the culture is survived, and you can go on tours there, and they explain essentially what they did 20, 30, 40,000 years ago, and they're still talking about.
I love Australia with like the law of one, I believe it is.
The lore of one, yeah.
Yes.
And there's and that trip also sort of added to my awareness that, hey, I live in a country as a Western person from Europe, where there's a lot of diverse peoples here from all over the world. Thankfully, it's beautiful, but we're living in a Western style system that is not necessarily firing on all cylinders. Let's put it nicely. And I've seen some of that, and it's easy to change it if there was enough will. But we also have one of the richest, because there's the Aztecs in Mexico, there's China, there's a lot of other cultures, but the Australian Aboriginal culture, it goes back 30, 40,000 years with paintings in walls that all have meaning. And so when you're sort of there, you feel energetically connected to that. And that's also how they treat the land. So if you talk about water preservation, it's the indigenous that know exactly what they've done for way longer than the settlers that are only a couple of hundred years. They've been here for a couple of hundred years, and all they did was imported dangerous chemicals from the U.S. stock market, or the Australian stock market.
So what advice would you give to someone, since you were there, standing there yourself, standing at the crossroads between the corporate world and a spiritual calling?
Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, it's very easy. Don't do what I did.
Don't do what I did.
It's too hard. It's too hard. It really. So I guess I'll say that a bit more. So for me, it was a calling almost, like when the way that my life played out. I guess I got I focused on my career early, so worked really hard to get to a level. So that part I would definitely try and suggest people to be disciplined early in life and be responsible, and don't have fun. Like I've had so much fun, but don't take it too far on any sort of measure, not with drugs, not with sex, not with music. So just moderate and have enough fun when you're young, but then realize that all the experience you have are gonna stay with you forever. And the other big thing is, which I wasn't aware of when I did this, is that you need to develop that self-awareness and the intimacy at the soul level. So we always talk about body, mind, and soul, but then we ignore the soul, and it's not being taught at schools. And that's part of the thing that's sort of now going to change. But to your point, so I just went cold turkey from one day to the next. And I was shaking when I had to tell my boss that I was going to resign, because I was literally having way too much fun working. I really enjoyed what I did. I had a great team of people. We had barbecues on the balcony with beers, and we're just enjoying success in a healthy way, I guess. But we were listed on a stock exchange. So, and I think that's why I'm saying don't do what I do. So I had a bit of a buffer, I guess, financially, that I knew that I wasn't going to get in a whole lot of problems for a while. And unfortunately, that's not, and certainly now there's very few people in that situation. But what I would do is, go through those stages of really sort of trying to understand the soul connection, do your own intuitive searching. And particularly with young people, the advice I would always give, which inadvertently benefited me, is to just be curious and travel as much as you can. Yeah. And if you can't afford worldwide travel, at least do it online and develop an interest in your fellow species, humanity, in different parts. There's so much beauty around the world. Foods, for instance, food is an easy one, right? So in most Western places now, you can have a diversity of palate for Asian food fusion. This. And so play with that, and then, but do it with intent. So what I do at home, I cook sometimes. I like cooking a lot, but if I cook something from a different culture, if I make a butter chicken, for instance, I make an effort to put on Indian music, because it's not just about the food; it's about the experience, it's about the energy that comes with it. Okay. And you put a few. So there's things that people can do, and then the other big thing that I see now in Nusa as a beautiful place. It's a very surfy sort of culture. The amount of people that are young people that are there, that are so chilled and relaxed, and they live in the back of a van. I think that is a good thing for any young person to at least try, because it's and so the reason why is that the van is a space where you have to stay somewhat disciplined and organized, and you also get to spend a lot of time alone working your way. So you're not on a path that the media of the university is trying to market and sell to you. But you're sort of free. You get a taste of freedom, and if you do that in a nice place where it's a wholesome place where you can walk bare feet in nature, you sort of develop that connection with the universe. And I think that's what young people should do before they lock themselves into careers, and before they become a real estate. I see real estate agents here in Australia, because of this financial boom that the wealthy have had, because of all this quantitative easing and money printing. The people that already had assets, they've doubled their assets easily in the last couple of years, whereas the people at the bottom end of the ring, they've made a step forward. And so what you have now is you have real estate agents that look like, the series Suits. You had Harvey Specter, was this really successful gung-ho lawyer or corporate lawyer that was doing deals everywhere. So now you've got real estate agents that sell houses, that drive around in Lamborghinis and Ferraris. Yeah. And they're playing that character. They're playing that role of being really successful and powerful, and just what they're doing is they're doing it a bit better than others, and they immediately get all the toys and then portray this image of success. And what you start seeing is that's going to fall away because people don't value that anymore, and that connects back to biblical scriptures and all sorts of stuff. So if income inequality is a problem that we can all see exists, at some point that's going to hit home. And a lot of people that are in that are still enjoying the fruits of that life, which I was not too long ago, they're going to get hit harder when it's going to be taken away from them. And maybe that's what the world needs, so maybe that's what the world needs to start seeing. And there needs to be this
dark night of the soul of unity consciousness, where we all say, okay, well, now this is it. We're gonna, and that's sort of what we are now, sort of what we are doing with talking about it. We're actually helping other people realize that you don't, sometimes losing something is actually gaining something else. And that's that idea of there's energy in the vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
So when you listen to what Elon Musk is not saying, and you question that with critical thinking, and I'm not having to pick on Elon. I mentioned a few names: Anthony Robbins, Deepak Chopra, Donald. You name them. Even Putin. Like, there's people that that are in that hierarchical system still, and you can if you can tune into energy, you can see whether they're a force for good or a force for evil. If you don't know, ask and talk to other people about it and try to work it out, and not in a way to fight, because there's a lot of sort of arguments in the truth movement and people that are opinionated because they've seen something that someone else hasn't seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to get over that myself, and it was probably hard because I wanted to help. I wanted to, but at some point you just got to say, hey, all I'm doing is I'm perpetuating that fear-based system by fighting the government. So now I'm sort of changing the love approach. I'm sort of saying, hey, how can I help you? And it's for free. Like, I don't charge anything for my services. I've taken financially, I've never been worse off than I am right now. But finances haven't interested me for a long time. I just want to create the world that I'm proud to leave my children, but also all other children behind.
Yeah. So what's one message you'd like to leave our audience with about human potential? And then we'll do one more question and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, so the simple message is don't put constraints on your thinking. You are more beautiful than you realize. You're more powerful than you realize. You're more capable than you realize. And you don't have to put that burden on you either. But if you take one small step, it accrues towards a giant leap. That's I guess that's the simple.
Yeah.
And I actually have a spreadsheet where I can show this, how you can double your outcomes on any measure that you pick, whether it's a health measure, a financial measure, a relationship. You can put it in a spreadsheet and see it happen. And it's but you have to be accountable to yourself.
Okay. And finally, if you could manifest one global change in the next decade, what would it be?
Wow, that's a big one. I'm working on too many to pick one, but I think it's clearly for me it's to help children essentially. So I've learned that it's way too hard work to try to unprogram someone that loves their belief system, and a lot of those people tend to be older males mainly. And now there's all females as well that you can add to that. But I think the thing is with the children they still believe in the beauty of the dreams, and we shouldn't destroy that. And I've had it seen very close to my own children. I haven't had a relationship with them for a while for all the wrong reasons. But the message I gave them is that same one: is that never take yourself too serious, never grow up, as long as you can leave it. To question everything you're told, even what your parents tell you, which we're all learning, and to keep shining your own light your own way. And that's I guess the two things that I'd like to help. And so with some of the projects that I'm now working on, they're all around those things. So we're starting an exciting project called Tapped In Talent to upgrade the way that people work. And it's really about that shift between the old system, fear-based, towards love. And it's just much easier. And once people start seeing it, it's just inevitable. And it's the same thing. We're seeing it as an energy exchange. So we won't be a company with buildings and CEOs, and even we won't have a rate card. We won't have a price list. We'll all be donation based. And the people who don't want to support a system like that, they need to do what they keep doing and see if it works for them. So and I think that's what we're all going through. We're just all that's why we're all just on a slightly different timeline, but I think it's inevitable that we're going to unite as a species. We're going to take better care of animals, take better care of the environment, and we're not going to buy into false ideologies any longer.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Well, thank you, Michael, for being here and being on the podcast. And I'm sure, we'll talk in Discord a little bit more about things, see if we can link up some more people together, because that's what I'm about too. As far
Yeah.
as far as my podcast goes, I want to link as many people together as I possibly can that have like-minded ideas.
Yeah, and I'm right behind you there, Jason. Thanks for reaching out. This was our first chat, so and I think what you're doing is fantastic. Just by the intent behind the podcast, the fact that you have the Discord server. I saw there's a few people there already, but we're going to need a lot more people to really affect the changes that we're starting to talk about. But I'll be there. Be right there. If there's any way I can help, let's connect together. Let's connect other people and start building. Growing those sort of satellites of databases together with around awareness, around benevolence, about what we can do to help other people.
Definitely. Thank you so much, sir. And we will speak probably either tonight or tomorrow.
Yes, sounds good.
Is it morning over there? Or?
Yes, it's morning. It's
Okay.
it's noon. Actually, it's spot on noon. So
okay. Well,
it must be late where you are.
I'll be going to bed soon since it's 10 p.m. here, but you'll be just, I guess, walking around the afternoon. So you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, and we will talk soon.
All right, Jay. Thanks for your time and thanks for connecting, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You have a great night.
You too. All right. That was Michael. Beautiful guy to have on. Wonderful, wonderful story. And he's right. We all need to start connecting more in love and in self-awareness of ourselves too, because we have to look inside ourselves first if we're going to make changes around you. The change has to come from within first. That's what I believe. Now I wanted to bring up, we have a lot of things coming up. Our next guest actually is tomorrow, and it will be Dr. Max Rempel. He's the managing director of DNA Resonance Research Foundation in San Diego, and he's going to be talking about quantum genetics, alien hybrids, and the hidden code within our very DNA. You don't want to miss this episode. It'll be tomorrow, and we are doing it. Let me see here if I can get this on here. I believe it's tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be the time. Let me make sure. Yep, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Quantum genetics and alien hybrids, the hidden code within us. And then we have the next one coming up after that will be, we have the Raelian movement actually coming to see us on their science and what they are doing. We have Quantum Pass and Raelian Science, the vision of Natalia Maurice. That should be a wonderful podcast there as well. They're working on a lot of science when it comes to that. Natalia Morris is a physicist whose work bridges cutting-edge science and the quest for deeper understanding of existence. With expertise in nanotechnology, optics, and quantum computing, she has contributed to research at the forefront of technological innovation. So beyond the laboratory, this girl is absolutely engaging in every philosophy, consciousness studies, and she also does advanced physics. This will be a wonderful conversation as well to have with her. And that will be on the 7th, actually, of November, if I get this correct here. That will be on the 7th of November at 6:30 p.m. And she will be coming actually out of Japan. So it's just like Michael, it's like almost midnight going on, 10 here. And it's going to be a different time for her, but we worked it out. It'll be November 7th at 6:30 p.m. And finally, well, not finally, because I have some great news to bring up. We have our drive has been successful. We will be doing a live stream on November 12th, donating $1,000 worth of pet supplies to our local Danville SPCA shelter. This is now I'm just starting this. I've been starting this for about the last 2 months, and it's been working out very well. And I thank everyone who has helped along the way. This is the Galactic Family Podcast Animal Rescue Outreach Project. And we're doing wonderful things for the community, wonderful things for our animals. And let's keep up the excitement, everyone, because, it's only just beginning. Also, we have the last bit of business I have for you today is I'm working on a new news kind of weekly podcast session to go on, or weekly podcast episode. And I'm believing it's going to be the Phenomenon Pulse. Will be the name of it, as far as what's going on in the world. What's going on with our sun, the energies, the solar activities, gravitational. It all affects our manifestations that we have in ourselves and the manifestations that we can connect to. The solar energies and the geomagnetical energies affect us as well. But that is where we're going to get to. We're going to get to the news and do Phenomenon Pulse. And we'll see where it goes. I have this picture and this one. So it's either going to be either one of those pictures. I'm still on the fence about which one it will be, but I'm happy that you guys took this ride with us tonight, and we will go ahead and we'll call it a night, and I will see you guys tomorrow at 2 p.m. for another great episode of the Galactic Family Podcast. Have a great night, everyone, and I will see you guys tomorrow.